Hey guys, how's it going? I'm not there today, obviously. So here is a lesson that you're going to look at on your computer, or you guys can do it together as a class and just write down the notes like we usually do in class. So like we started out on Friday, we're talking about ratios now. So you guys should already have this written down in your notebook, but our definition of a ratio is a component of two quantities using division. So one of the most important things that I want you to underline in your notebook when you're writing this definition is this division part, because what ratios have to do with is dividing two things. Also, like I said, I want you to have these three examples in your notebook because these are three different ways that we can write ratios. And then I also said that I want you to make a star next to your notes and say that you do not need labels. Labels are not needed for ratios. Okay, so make sure you have all that in your notebook. You can go ahead and pause me if you need to, and then when you're done, you can move on. Okay, so our first problem here says that there are 45 males and 60 females in a subway car. 45 males, 60 females, and we need to find the ratio of males to the females. So we have 45 to 60. If I go back to this slide here, look at where I have these two little semicolons. The semicolons, that's how we know that we're writing a ratio. So when we need to find the ratio of males to females, we have 45 males, we have 60 females, and again, remember, we don't need labels. However, just like fractions, we need to make sure that this is most simplified. So I can take a 15 out of both of these numbers, and I'll be left with a 3 to 4 ratio, and that would be my final answer. So here it says a subway car travels 5 miles in 20 minutes, and we need to find a ratio of our miles to our minutes. So if we're looking at it, we have 5 miles, 20 minutes, but again, that's not most simplified. We can take a 5 out of both of those numbers, and we would have a 1 to 4 ratio. Like I said before, go ahead and pause me if you need time to write this down, and then we'll move on. So one of the things we have with our tables is, one of the things we have when we're talking about ratios are ratio tables. So these are just basically tables where you really got to look for patterns. If you look here, we have two different categories. We have amount of seed, and we have cost in dollars. So we have 10 pounds of seeds, and that's $40. 20 pounds of seeds is $80. 30 pounds of seeds is $120. All I want you to tell me is then what will go in here and what will go in here. So you notice that each time we are increasing by 10. And if you notice down here, each time we are multiplying the one before it times 2. So if the pattern were to keep going, we would need to figure out what will go in our pounds box and our dollars box. So if I add 10 again, I would be at 40 pounds. And if I multiply 2 again, I would be at $240. So 40 pounds of seed would be $240. And the way that you figure this out is by making one of these ratio tables. So our next one says to write the ratio as a fraction in simplest form. I'm going to go ahead and change this because this number here should not be there. All right. So our first example here is 25 to 45. So we know for all of these, our answers are going to have our colons. All right, so we have 25 to 45. So if we take out 5 from both of those numbers, we're going to be left with a 5 to 9 ratio. That's going to be our final answer here. 63, and then this was supposed to be a 28, but it kind of messed up there. So if we have 63 to 28, we need to think of what number can we take out of both of those. I know that 1 goes into 28, 2 goes into 28, 4 does not go into 28. I know that, let's see, 6 wouldn't work, 7 might work. I think 7 does work. So if we take a 7 out of both of these numbers, this is going to be a 4, and then this would also be a 9. So we would have a 9 to 4 ratio. And it would not be correct if you flipped it. You can't write 4 to 9. It has to be in the same order you started. So the bigger number needs to be on the left, smaller number needs to be on the right. this answer would not work. So our answer needs to be our 9 to 4. And then if we look down here, here's where we start dealing with fractions a little bit. Like I told you guys, that's actually the next thing that we're going to get into. So whenever we have a number or a fraction like this, we call this a mixed number. We need to turn it into an improper fraction. The way you do that is you take your 2 1/3 and your 4 1/2, and I call it the C method. You draw a big C, you multiply here, you add here, same thing over here, multiply and add. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7, so this is really 7 over 3. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9, so this is 9 over 2. And now we can write a ratio, because our ratio is going to be 7/3, so 9 over 2. And we could take this farther, but we're just going to leave it here for now. When we talk more about fractions, then we'll get there. All right, here is our next example. There are 24 chocolate chip cookies. The ratio of chocolate chip cookies to sugar cookies is 8 to 3. How many sugar cookies are there? So I'm going to take my colors here. We have 24 chocolate chip cookies. 24 chocolate chip cookies. Let's see. We have sugar cookies. Chocolate chip again. Trying to figure out how many sugar cookies they're going to be. Now take a minute, write this whole entire situation down, because then we're going to talk about how we solve for our answer here. All right, so we know that the ratio of chocolate chip cookies to sugar cookies is 8 to 3. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down here. Our ratio is 8 chocolate to 3 sugar cookies. Okay. Now we ask ourselves, we know something. We know that there are 24 chocolate chip cookies. So we're going to try to figure out how many sugar cookies there has to be. So there's a couple of different ways to go about this, but I think the easiest way is to look at how we got from 8 to 24. Now, we don't really want to talk about adding and subtracting, because remember, if we go back to our, let's see, our, what's it called? Our definition up here, we're using division. So we want to think about how we get to 24 using multiplication or division. So obviously division wouldn't work here. So we're going to look at our multiplication. 8 times what gets me 24? That answer would be 3. So whatever we do to one side, we need to do to the other side. So we'd have to multiply this other side by 3. And then we know 8 times 3 is 24, and 3 times 3 is 9. But remember, this is a word problem, so we need a word answer. So our answer would be something along the lines of 9 sugar cookies. All right, so that's all the notes that I have today. If you guys have any questions, I will try my best to answer those tomorrow. What you're going to do for the rest of class is you're going to work on your homework. I have told the sub what page it's on. And then also you're going to get new green sheets. Those are due on Friday, and you're going to get started on those if you get done with your homework. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow.